My next guests have been reporting and speaking out on the plight of Christians in Iraq and the Middle East for years. They're here to discuss Pope Francis's apostolic journey to Iraq this weekend, what's on the Pope's agenda, and what are the risks, as well as some breaking news from Rome. Here with analysis is Rome correspondent of the National Catholic Register, Edward Pentin, and founder of Nazarene.org, Father Benedict Kiely. Thank you both for being here. Pope Francis heads to Iraq for a potentially dangerous apostolic visit this weekend. He'll be there from March 5th through the 8th. Here's what he had to say this week in advance of his arrival. My dear Christian brothers and sisters from Iraq who have testified to your faith in Jesus amid harsh sufferings, I cannot wait to see you. I'm honored to encounter a church of martyrs. Thank you for your witness. Ed, your thoughts on the significance of this visit, and what does the Pope and the Vatican, what do they hope to achieve here?
Well, the main aim to what they want to achieve is two main reasons, really, why the Pope is going. First of all, is to encourage the persecuted there, those who have suffered for many years, even before ISIS arrived in 2014. They've suffered a lot for centuries, but especially in the recent history since the Iraq War, especially. So he's going there to give them encouragement, but also another key part of this visit is to reach out to the other faiths. It's going to be very much an interreligious dialogue emphasis to this visit. He's going to be at the birthplace of Abraham in Ur, which is the first time a pope has ever been there. It's the first time he's ever been to Iraq as well. So it's a very significant trip and a very historic one.
Father Kiely, the Pope will visit a Christian population that's been devastated by life under the Islamic State. What is the condition now of that Christian community? And what are they looking to hear from the Pope? And do you think they'll hear it?
They're looking, Raymond, to hear one thing above all other things, and that is that the Pope cares about them, that he wants to put the world's focus on their persecution. All the other things, including the interreligious dialogue angle, are very much secondary. They want the world's attention to be focused on Francis and then focusing on them, all that they've suffered, not just, as Edward said, because of ISIS, but as you know well, from the invasion of Iraq, which St. John Paul II warned would decimate the Christian community. Now the Christian community is really in danger of extinction.
No, it's tragic what has happened there and how they've been brutalized, not only by the Iraq War, but then by ISIS moving in, and the cities are in ruin. But you mentioned something there I want to pick up on. You said the Christians in the region want their plight to be front and center, but it seems the Vatican is emphasizing this outreach to Islam, this dialogue with Muslims. Is there a chance that something might get lost in translation here during this visit?
There's a major chance, and that's what they're most concerned about, that if that is the central focus, I've been told, I'm in regular contact, almost weekly contact with people in Iraq, priests, etc. They say that if that's the main focus, almost it's better that he doesn't come. They're praying. I think the words you read out at the beginning are very good. If that's the focus, things will go well. But there's a nervousness because that seems to be one of the features of Francis's pontificate, which is this interreligious dialogue. And basically Christians in Iraq say to me, we don't need to dialogue. We were the peaceful people. We don't need to be told to be brothers. We were brothers and sisters. We were living in peace. It was our people who were attacked, our women raped, our children kidnapped. So they don't need any lessons about living in peace.
Security is obviously a major concern here, Ed. A round of rocket attacks hit a U.S. and coalition military installation on Wednesday. One U.S. contractor died. The White House has warned of possible retaliation. What are you hearing about the security on the ground in Iraq? I know there were some in the Vatican, I spoke to them, who were hoping the Pope would cancel this visit.
Yes, well, that is a concern, but the Pope has been on these sort of trips before. I went with him to Egypt, and I remember that was considered a very dangerous trip at the time because of the Islamist threat. He was also went, of course, to the Central African Republic, where there was a civil war going on at the height of the civil war. So he's no stranger to visiting dangerous places, and I think he really quite relishes the challenge. I think he sees this very much as a sort of a mission that he must undertake. But there is high security that he's going to have to face, and that includes he won't be driving around in an open top car at all. It'll be all closed. He'll have one, I think, open top appearance, which will be the Mass, I think, in Erbil.
Right.
But apart from that, it'll be very much very, very, very tight security, I think.
The other obvious concern at the moment, and you read a lot of this in the Western press, is this pandemic. Iraq's currently seeing an uptick in COVID infections, but Iraq officials say they're taking every precaution. And here's a statement. They said in preparation for the Pope's visit, the Civil Defense Directorate are sterilizing the churches within the geographic area of the Qareda neighborhood to reduce the spread of coronavirus. This campaign has been going on for a week, and today is the last day of sterilizing the churches. Father Ben, after all this Christian community has endured, how big a deal is COVID for Iraqi Christians?
It's a big deal, Raymond. COVID is very bad. But as you said, what they've been through, this is pretty low on the list now. When they've been driven out of their cities, when they've been bombed, when they've been murdered and kidnapped. So they got on with life. 10,000 people in a soccer stadium, there's going to be no social distancing. In Iraq, that's not really something they even understand anyway. So I think if he didn't come now, the question is, when would he come? It's dangerous, perhaps. It's maybe not the right time, but this is the only time.
Well, Ed, the Pope has had the vaccine, right? So what's the concern?
Yes, well, I mean, the concern, I suppose, is not so much with him and the people traveling with him, because they've all had the vaccine and they've all been tested. But the concern is really, as Father Benedict was saying, it's really the Iraqis, of course, and they're the ones who are going to be pushed together in crowds and so forth. So that's I think, the concern, really.
Both of you visited Iraq together in 2018, just after the collapse of the Islamic State. We're going to roll some video of that visit. Ed and then Father, how has present-day Iraq changed from what you experienced then, if at all?
Well, I haven't been there, of course, since then, but I think there has been quite a bit of reconstruction since then, and quite a few Christians have come back to Iraq since that time. And I think also in Mosul, where we both went in 2018, there's been a lot of reconstruction there. It was devastated when we went there, and there was lots of bombed out buildings and really completely devastated city after 4 years of occupation by ISIS. And that was that's going to take a long time to rebuild. But I think that they have started on that. And I think I've heard from Archbishop Majib, who I spoke to this week. He's the Archbishop of Mosul. He said that 60 to 70 families have returned to Mosul now. So there is hope that there can be a sort of reconstruction and bring the Christians back there. And he said that the people there, the Christians there, are very much hoping that, or very, very grateful that the Pope's coming, because they say that gives them strength and encouragement to come back and to make a life there. So that could be a very positive fruit of this.
Father, 60 to 70 families doesn't sound like, a huge crowd.
No, it's a drop. Before 2014, in fact, by about 2008, there were about 14,000 Christians in Mosul, and they were driven out long before ISIS. But Edward is right. There's construction, et cetera, but there's only one open church in Mosul itself, one resident priest. None of the bishops are actually living in Mosul. It's too dangerous. The whole area of the Nineveh plain where the Christians are is now called disputed territories between Iraq and Kurdistan, and it's full of Shia militia who are pushing the Christians out, not by violence, but by economic and demographic change, refusing to let Muslims buy from Christian shops. So, yes, people are not being slaughtered, but it's a slow, what I use the image of strangulation. They're slowly being squeezed. And the saddest thing of all is the young people are all asking to leave because they don't feel like they have any hope. There's no jobs and security. So maybe the Pope can give them a little bit of hope. No, that's what they say. They all want to emigrate.
The Pope is going to try to, as you mentioned earlier, bolster this fragile, dwindling community. He'll also attempt to build a bridge to the Islamic world. There's a historic meeting with the Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani. Ed, what is the political significance of this meeting? And Do you see the Pope having any true dialogue with the Muslim community?
Well, I think he's certainly, this is a major part of it. He really wants to help, really wants to meet Ali Sistani, because this is considered to be a very significant. He's a very influential Shia leader in Iraq and in the region itself. So this is going to be a very significant meeting. But of course, this is only a small part of it, and that he wants to also reach out to the other religions too, the Yazidis, of course, and even some of the others. Faiths, other believers and non-believers as well. So the Zoroastrians, for example, as well. But so this is going to be a very significant part, and also he's going to be bringing his human fraternity document, and he's going to give that, of course, as a gift to Ali al-Sistani and to others too. And he's going to really want to share that the contents of that with all of these people.
Father, some have criticized the perceived emphasis on ecumenism, interreligious dialogue here over the plight of the Christian community. There's also been, I've seen a lot of ink spilled about this planned interreligious prayer service on Saturday in Ur between the Pope and the Yazidi sect. Why this controversy? I mean, popes have had interfaith prayer services before. Is there any merit to this criticism?
That's hard to say, Raymond. I think sometimes some of that's on the outer fringes, as we might say, of people who are really looking for trouble. I mean, the important thing is that, yes, as you say, previous popes, John Paul and Benedict, have done this. The real problem, though, about dialogue is you have to have two people who can hear with dialogue. And part of the problem is the Church, has certainly under this pontificate, has tended to speak a great deal about dialogue especially with Islam. And we wonder, and I know in Iraq and across the Middle East, they often feel that dialogue is only possible when the other person is willing to also change and be open to that dialogue. And often it's a dialogue of the deaf.
Terrible, but a reality. You're right. Ed, before we go, I want to get your reaction to some breaking news from the Vatican. Pope Francis has nominated Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark to be a member of the very important Congregation for Bishops. Now, this would give Tobin an influential role in the selection of bishops all over the world. What does the appointment tell you about Francis's vision for the Church, the kind of men he's looking for bishops? And there's also a rumor that Cardinal Cupich of Chicago, who's already on that congregation, may soon be appointed head of it.
Yes, well, this isn't really unexpected. A lot of people would think it's kind of predicted that this would happen, that Cardinal Tobin would be chosen. It's very much in keeping his vision. It's very in keeping with that of Pope Francis. And of course, Cardinal Cupich is already a member of the Congregation for Bishops. Right. And that vision is really, as Francis said recently to a group of journalists from Catholic News Service, that I think he wants, or at least he insinuated that he wants more sort of a moderate, as he puts it, a moderate group of bishops in the United States Bishops' Conference, and this is part of the way of doing it. And I think that's why he's appointed him as a member of this congregation. It's quite a significant appointment in the sense that now Cardinal Tobin has quite a lot of influence now over who becomes bishop in the United States, but also beyond. And so it's quite a significant step. But as I say, it is rather expected. But of course, the other thing that is also worth remembering is that Archbishop Vigano mentioned him in his famous statement in 2018, and this is quite significant in the fact that Cardinal Tobin, Cardinal Cupich were both selected without going through the nunciature. They were both chosen, sort of handpicked by Pope Francis. And so, again, you can see this again happening here with the Congregation for Bishops, that these two have been very much handpicked by Francis to be part of this, and very much to push through his vision for the Church.
I also wanted to very quickly get your take on this recent interview with Benedict XVI in an Italian newspaper this week, in which he defends his decision to step down from the papacy, even calling some critics of his decision fanatical. What are you hearing about this? I've read some opinion pieces that cast, they're not quite certain whether this is an authentic interview or not.
Yeah, there's questions like that too here, Raymond. And I think people say, well, it doesn't sound like Benedict. The quotes were sort of taken very much sort of out, and we never could see the full transcript, or there's no video. And so there's a lot of suspicion and doubts as to whether this is true. I have written to Massimo Franco, who was the journalist who did the interview, and I've asked Archbishop Georg Genswein, the personal secretary of Benedict, if these really just how this interview came about and whether these comments are accurately reported. I haven't heard from either of them, but I think there are doubts about it. But I think on the other hand, though, that it is rather consistent with what Benedict has said in the past about his resignation. Some viewers may remember he had a frosty exchange with Cardinal Walter Brandmüller about the resignation, and he's quite sensitive to criticism to the resignation, and this sort of comes through in this interview as well. So you could argue that there is consistency there.
Well, we will leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you both. The Next Pope, the Leading Cardinal Candidates by Edward Pentin is available at bookstores everywhere. You can naturally follow Ed's reporting at the National Catholic Register. And Father Benedict Kiely's ministry to the persecuted Christians in Iraq and Syria is at Nazarene.org. Thank you both.
Thank you, Raymond.